All good? All right. Hello and welcome to the Tuesday, December 17th, 2024 Selectmen Special Meeting. This is a joint meeting with the WEMS Board. The first agenda item is to hold a joint meeting between the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Directors of Wells Emergency Medical Services, Inc. to discuss the possibility of incorporating WEMS operations into the Town of Wells Fire Department. Brian, if you want, I'll turn it over to you for a minute just to kind of open it up.
So, we were appointed, I believe, 3 years ago now, maybe a little longer, 3.5. And, we were appointed when the, WEMS board had resigned, and it was the, report that had come out by, MRI study on the WEMS fire. So, since that time, we've made a lot of progress, a lot of the issues have been completely resolved. And time for us to forward to its next steps. One of the recommendations was that we look at the, combined operation under this town's control. So, our board has been discussing that, going back and forth for many months now, actually, and we had a couple of really good discussions the last few meetings. So last Wednesday night, we had a motion that, we moved that we, the WEMS board, forward a recommendation to the town and the select board that the town take action to merge WEMS and the fire department into one functioning operation as recommended in the March 2022 Wells Maine Fire and Emergency Medical Services Study conducted by Municipal Resources Corporation. This motion is made to ensure that we continue to provide superior customer services to our residents and guests. That motion was passed unanimously, and I forwarded it to the town manager the following morning, so they could notify the board, and we could start this process, present it to you, and then for you guys to figure out what the next steps are.
So can you tell us a little bit about how you arrived at this conclusion? Sort of, was it budgetary? Is it operational?
So it's a little bit of everything. Number one is, we always want to make sure that we deliver service to the community that's of great quality, because they've been doing that, right? And we've got a lot of dedicated people in the WEMS department. And they've been with the town for many years, and they're really fantastic people. But we looked at the report, we looked at how things are going, the communication issues are all gone. There really should be a unified command structure, not two separate units anymore. Coordination of training, response and incident command, that all would work together. A single set of policies and procedures for not only processes, but for employees' benefits and all that. Streamlining operation expenses, our lease, which is currently $1 a year. We've been notified that York Hospital wants us to go to a fair market value lease, which our lease currently expires in June of next year. And we're estimating right now that it's going to cost about $46,000 a year for that lease. So it's an additional expense. We've also heard from we have a separate attorney to represent our board in the WEMS department. And we've heard from them that we need to increase our legal line because of the fact that we're a non-profit, we're not covered by the town. If something was to happen, we have no funds available to have legal representation if there's ever any type of suit. So that expense is going up. There's no accountability to the town for our budget. We request from the town money every year to subsidize the operation because no one operates their WEMS operation at a profit. It's just not realistic. None of the fire departments are, they're all rich almost all across the town. It's an expense, but it's an expense that we have to take care of the folks in town. But we have no accountability to the town. So this year, our request is almost $900,000 for operations, and I believe it's 2.5 for capital expense, which brings us like 1.2 million. And say there was a change in how Medicare all of a sudden decided to handle ambulance calls. Currently, they give us a set fee, right? If they ever raise that, and we start getting tons of revenue coming in, we have no accountability to you at all. The WEMS board can decide what they want to do with that money, and you have no recourse on that. So that's another thing. Streamlining of capital costs. WEMS doesn't have the ability to get grants. We got one last year. It's the first time we were able to get one, but it was a one-time situation. The town and fire department have the ability to get grants from federal and state money, which we're not eligible for, which would help defray some of the costs of merging the operations. So, I think that's really it, when you think about it, all those items. We reread the report, I've read it numerous times. And we're actually pretty much on a timeline that they had said it probably would take us to get to this point. I think the relationships between all public safety departments is fantastic right now. And I know that was an issue before, and it's pointed out in the report. So that all that bickering that was going on is gone. WEMS is supporting fire department at fires as well, when they need the assistance. Fire department is assisting WEMS at calls. The timing is just right.
Open it up for just the free flow of discussion, any questions anybody might have, either from the WEMS board, the select board, the WEMS board, comments, anything like that. Just open it up at this time. Mike, of course, you're included.
John, I agree with what has been going down here for some time. Of course, I'm an outsider. I've only lived in Wells for like 6 years, but I have 40 years of experience in the fire service. And it's unique, the situation that you guys have had with the WEMS and the fire department and WEMS in general. The fact of how it operates. And I've never seen such an ordeal, but it is what it is. I agree with Brian. I think accountability on the part of the town taking over the ambulance service is a move in the right direction. It's certainly that way all across the country. Now, there are sections of the country that there are private ambulance services. Certainly down in my neck of the woods in Massachusetts, there's several of them I can think of. But most ambulance services that are privatized usually enter into a contract with the municipality. So WEMS is, Wells is only other option. And it's basically what you're doing now. It's just saying, we need a 911, an emergency vehicle with paramedics staff 24/7 in our community, maybe more than one, especially in the summertime. That means that those companies, those private companies, will come in and give you a contract. And I know in the town of Grafton, Massachusetts, Millbury, Massachusetts, they have contracts with a private ambulance service. They don't have full-time fire departments. Those contracts are in excess of $3 million. That's for one truck parked in their town to take care of their people. That truck goes out of town for anything else. There's nothing else to back it up. So you gotta realize the system you've had has been a very good system. But I think the problem is that it's come to a point where you made the move to expand your fire service. You built a brand new fire station, public safety facility. I think it's only right that at this point, running an ambulance service on per diem people, and you have per diem people don't know that's part-time people. It's becoming a very difficult situation to fulfill. And before you get another situation like you were in, when you asked some of us to step up to the board, I think it's the move in the right direction to have you 5 people in the town's ability to have that accountability in the fire chief. I think it's a good move.
Brian, you mentioned the report. How extensive is that report, and what does it cover?
That was a report that was done on the public safety departments. That was done 3 years ago by MRI. It's online still, I believe.
So it's
It's an extensive report, yeah, very extensive.
Could we furnish Jim a copy of that report?
Yeah. You know, Dawn points out that those towns, those small towns, really, so it's $3 million contract. WEM's operational budget it's about 2.2 million, but we just submitted. They're roughly, it's about 2.2 million. And that's including the money that we get back reimbursed from the services that we provide, so it's a little higher than that, but. And that's for 2 trucks, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, so, the system that you have is working. If you merge that per diem operation with the fire department, I think it'd be even better. That's where the board's coming from.
So your financial reports, those will also be available?
Financial reports are available every year. Jody has ours report for this year already. We're audited every year as well.
Let me see.
Can you talk a little bit to the difficulty of staffing?
So, I think staffing is an issue no matter what type of job situation you're in nowadays. But we have a group of dedicated folks that have been there, some of them have been there, what, 30 years, right? The problem is getting to be the fact that not a lot of people go into this field. And that the younger generations don't want to work or commit to the amount of hours that we really need to continue this same system going, right? They want to work 1 day a week or 1 day every 2 weeks. We have trouble covering the weekends, so we're actually in the budget for next year. We put a stipend in place for weekends, $5 an hour, so that people grab those shifts. You know, and the wages, you've got a seesaw effect going on right now, so we raised those wages, 2 years ago, starting wages, we raised them again about 4 months ago. The starting wages, and no one else has got any type of pay raise this year because we raised those. What happens is other towns that have per diems are raising their wage to counteract what we're doing for us, which means that now you have to raise the wages to retain people. And that's gonna continue going on because the pool of people available is shrinking. And everybody wants to get good folks.
I was just gonna say that there are times when you have to go out on calls, so. So, I mean, his staff is supported, but he's relying on.
Brought something up, and it's this way in every, it's this way in education right now, so, right, so if we do this, and believe me, I was actually a part of it when I was at Well Beach Fire, so I was part of the ambulance system back when that was, and that all fiasco happened at the end there, and we actually privatized for a little while, and that was a huge mistake, and that's how WEMS kind of, Scott knows because he was around, that's how WEMS kind of became WEMS, but if I get you're having a tough time finding people this, then what's the answer? How do we find more people to house the ambulance if we build it into the fire? What's saying we're still gonna find people? I mean, that answer is never a great answer because it's that way across the board, no matter what profession we're in right now, right? I mean, you don't have enough teachers in Maine, you don't have enough this in Maine, right? Everywhere we go, there's not enough of anything. So what? So does that, can we solve that by doing this? That's what I want.
We believe you can. By merging the operations, you should be able to solve that problem.
Mike, what was, when we put out, we recently hired for the fire department in the last couple of years, how was that received? Do we have a lot of applicants?
We did. We had a significant number, and I am led to believe that if we were to put out again, that number would be even more significant. As a meeting I was at last week, someone referenced the fact it takes 6 to 12 months for good words to spread about an organization. And they feel as though Wells is a very desirable place to come and work right now. And I think that comes from all the support that's been given to the service and the good work that the service and WIMS have done together. So long answer to, I think we are a really great location to be able to recruit.
I have to say, I agree with the WEMS board's assessment, just because what we saw what happened a couple of years ago where the agency almost became insolvent because of, not because of the employees, but because of basically an upper leadership issue is what I'll classify it as. We had a mass resignation. There was one person left on the board by Maine law. If that person had resigned, which they did end up resigning, if they had with the other group, it would have become insolvent. We wouldn't have had any leadership at that point. We had no transport license and we were in a real pickle. I remember there was a panic about this when it went on. So making ourselves more resilient as a community, I think, is of the utmost concern right now. And it's probably one of the bigger issues facing the town of Wells, I think. We're in a good position right now because we've had a very effective WEMS board, a lot of very dedicated people who also live in town. We've had the dedicated per diems, but that's not to say that we're going to be able to keep this going for another 5 years. And then the question I asked myself at that point, if we do hit the rocks, what do we do? Now we're in a reactive position rather than a proactive position.
I agree, it's always better to be proactive than reactive. Just this.
Now, we had those 2x2 meetings, and my question, and maybe this isn't the appropriate time for this meeting, this is something that needs to go down the road. But as far as funding is concerned, at 2x2 meeting, we discussed staffing. And we don't have a concrete idea of what that would look like yet. That was all just brainstorming. But we know per our charter that we have to have not just the funding for the positions approved, but the positions themselves actually approved to come in. So what we need to look at, I think one of the things is what we need to look at. One of the first things we need to look at, there's going to be some period of overlap between when WEMS is still operating, but we need to get things, if this was the route we went, we would need to get things set up for the fire department in terms of the staff. Now, how do we keep from double budgeting essentially? I know that.
Well, I don't know the answer quite yet. One of the things that we know is merger and acquisitions in the corporate world as well as the municipal world take really good timing, and there has to be overlap. And so we have to make sure that there's a real clean handoff. We know that WEMS provides 4 personnel per shift now. The fire department does the same. We know the quality of service is excellent from both, and we want to maintain that. Now, I think we start looking at, through perhaps a strategic planning group, how we might look at different models of staffing and the costs that are associated with that, to make sure that we don't impact the quality while still being in a good smooth transitional period. As was mentioned just a minute ago by Brian, safer grants become an option for the town. With it falling under the town's umbrella, so to speak. One idea maybe, can we get the allocation for positions, but not fund them immediately, so that we can pursue safer grants? Safer grants typically want the positions, but not have them funded. They're funding them for 3 years, oftentimes at 100%. That model changes some. Mark's been very engaged in those in the past. So we want to look at what those opportunities may be, and then I think try to decide what our next steps may be.
So if we could look at, in theory, if we could look at, we decide on a staffing model, if we go this route, we figure that out as a group, and we could actually move those positions forward unfunded to get them approved, and then.
Talking with legal counsel, Leah felt as though that was a possibility. She wanted to explore it further. But I think we want to be extremely transparent, obviously, with the public, that this is our rationale. So if legal advises us that it's okay, then I think we want to make sure people understand what the end effort is and why we're doing what we're doing. So that could take a year or more, I think, as we try to plan that out. Don't really know what the timeline might look like. I think that's a work in progress for all of us.
I think it's just important to say clearly that this is a true merger, and the folks that are in the ambulance service right now are given every opportunity to continue their service and move into the new joint venture. And we're not moving away from those folks because they provided valuable service to us.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Any other questions or comments from this board?
I think also you have to make sure that, you know, we put our best foot forward in the sense that to the public in general, that this merger, this process is gonna be a process. And during that process, we're not downgrading the service. We're not, you know, making shortcuts in the service. We're gonna keep providing the best possible EMS service to the people of Wells and the people that visit Wells. Because by any means, this is not gonna be resolved. Our budget that we propose is probably gonna have to be accepted. We'll go through that process of the next year, the year after. I don't know exactly how long it's gonna take, but we wanna make sure that we, this board and the WEMS board, you guys, and everybody in this room, firefighters included, put their best foot forward and say, this is the service that we wanna go with, but it's gonna take a process, and nothing is going down the tubes.
Yeah, I agree. And the other thing we have to remind people is that this is not a dig on WEMS. Let me tell you, that the 2 times we've tried this, it's been a powder keg in this town. And I understand people have a lot of emotions behind WEMS. They worked hard to build that, and they did it. And this is not a downgrade on WEMS. It's not a dig on WEMS or anything like that. It's just a changing of the times. And that's what we have to make sure the public understands. We're not going after WEMS. This is not an issue with that. We need to move on this because Scott knows very well that this can be a powder keg for people in this town. And there's a lot of old time Wells people that are not going to be thrilled with this idea when they hear it come out. And we need to explain why we're doing that. And just having been around it and faced that, many times in my thing here, it's not gonna be as easy as them just saying, yeah, that's great. That's probably not gonna happen at first. They need to be explained to. And why.
I agree. I agree. Yeah, that's the thing. It's not a dig at the service. I mean, for myself, I know that you guys experienced it, but what year was that?
I'm so old, I don't know anymore. I started in the eighties and then I don't remember the nineties and then again a few years ago, not that long ago. I honestly, it's all blended in, but
I was born in '89, so I don't fall on one side of the aisle or the other as far as the old, well, no, I mean, just from my perspective, and I think a lot of people that live in town too. But I'm not looking at it through that optic, and I don't think anybody up here is. The organization has worked great over the years. But we do have long-time dedicated employees that have worked there. We know they're very passionate about it. Just the organizational structure, and I've seen it again, sitting on the board. I've seen it a couple of times where, information wasn't forthcoming that would have been handy for us to have, and it's getting it under one roof really is what it's all about, I think. That way, to me, it's just more accountability to the taxpayers at that point in terms of how it's run, and also, you brought up a great point, Brian, not qualifying for grants, well, in that line of work, that's huge. Those things are huge.
yeah, and I think when it all went down the first time, what Sue Ludick and her group did was nothing short of a miracle to form something like this that worked. And it worked for a real long time. And unfortunately, Sue's no longer with us and things went, whatever you want to say about it. And we just gotta accept the fact that times have changed. I mean, this happens all the time. But I just want to make sure people understand that this is not any kind of dig on what they did, because I'm telling you, when that happened, it was a miracle what they pulled off, to give us service in this town.
Absolutely.
And good service for many years.
Yes.
Any other discussion around this? Questions, going once, going twice?
I'm just wondering how we proceed.
Yeah, so we have a motion down here. Again, I assume this was discussion tonight surrounding whether or not we actually want to go down this road, and then from here forward, depending on how the vote goes, that's where we'll get into weeds on this stuff. Or not, I assume we don't want to get too far into that tonight, just where. Okay. So I would say if there's no more discussion, we'll take a motion based on the one that is on the bottom of the page. Whether or not we want to explore the possibility of incorporating WEMS into the town of Wells.
I'm just reading this and seeing if that's a motion. Oh, we're not motion, we're just discussing.
The first one, the second one has a motion on it below it. Here it's on this page.
Sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, all yours.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, we ready for this motion?
I will take a motion if somebody wants to put it forward.
I'll make the motion. I move that we consider the request by WEMS to incorporate its operations into the town of Wells Fire Department, and that we authorize the town manager to coordinate the collection of information relevant to this possibility, including but not limited to associated budgetary and personnel impacts.
Second,
All those in favor? 4-0. Motion passes. All right, well, the next item that we have on this special meeting is adjournment.
Can we adjourn?
You have a second?
second.
All those in favor? 4-0. Great, we'll be back at 6 o'clock. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, guys.